We're talking Get Out today.
Get Out.
Jordan.
We should have reviewed this a long time ago.
Well,
What's wrong with us?
There's a lot of things wrong with us, Gene.
Yeah, if you haven't figured out, we're up here in Anchorage. It's like 5 degrees outside. It's so cold.
Oh, it was my dream temperature out in Wasilla yesterday, -3.
Yeah, I have a friend who's working up in Fairbanks, Alaska. It's -20. It probably won't get above 0 until March. It's really sad. It's sad and dark up here.
Well, the sun went down in Uktiavik just, a week ago, and it won't be back until...
For like 5 months.
Yeah. Welcome to Alaska. But anyway, we're talking Jordan Peele's Get Out.
But it's warm in the dungeon.
It was kind of the movie that really set him on this pathway of being considered a horror film director, and a pretty dang good one. But Gene...
Yeah, this is Blair Witch Project stuff. It was made for a budget of like, $4 million? Something ridiculously low.
4.5, yeah.
I think worldwide gross is like $255 million. Whatever return on investment, and as it should, this movie's great. Great. If you like horror movies, you've probably seen Get Out. But if you haven't seen Get Out, you need to see it. Yeah, this movie's great. It's got huge themes running all through it. You know, themes of loss of control, loss of freedom, privilege, people that are not privileged. Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, I would also put it in the realm of, if you're not a big horror film fan, this is a good starting point.
This is a great starting point. It doesn't have like stupid slasher stuff going on, but it's
really great slasher stuff, by the way. But
it has really good themes, and it's dark, and it's
Well, it reminds me a lot of a Twilight Zone episode, which of course Jordan Peele did a revival of Twilight Zone. It's got the Stepford Wives vibe going on there.
I thought of that.
Things like that. So it's a really dialogue-heavy horror film as far as setting up what's really happening and kind of the uncomfortableness of a African-American being surrounded by a bunch of older white people.
Well, and it gets a lot deeper than that, for sure. But it's a lot of... Yeah, the movie from the get-go it's just... Jordan Peele did a great job putting this thing together. But filmed in Alabama, of all places. Mm-hmm. The opening scenes are in Mobile, Alabama. And there's this guy, a young black man, slender, walking down a street, trying to find his way, probably, I think, to a friend's house. It looks a little lost. Anyway, a car drives by. When it passes by him, it turns around. You know, it's just like... I would scare anybody. You're walking down the street alone. A car passes by you going the other way, and then it makes a quick U-turn. And it comes up right behind you. You know, how are you supposed to react to that? And then he turns around. He turns around directions, does a 180, walking back the other way. And then somebody gets out of the car, assaults him, throws him in the trunk. And then it just moves on. We meet Chris, the protagonist of the movie, Chris Washington, hanging out with his friend Rod, and this is Jordan Peele's background here. This movie is a horror movie all the way, but this movie also is really funny. It's got some really solid comedic elements, but it's such that I would not call this a horror comedy.
No.
You know, not like some of the zombie movies that are out there. No, it is not that. But there are parts, especially the relationship between Chris and his friend Rod, that are just really funny.
Well, Rod is definitely a comedic character.
He is, for sure. And you've seen him in other things. But it's a great dynamic between those two, and also between Rose as well. They got this thing going, Chris, Rose, and Rod going at the beginning. And it's, And so good movies, they draw you in, and then they put that hook in you, and you want to stay. You like the characters, and Jordan Peele did a great job with this. Well, so right off the bat, you're hooked, and you want to see what happens to Chris.
And Rose, of course, is played by Allison Williams, who we remember and love from Megan.
So I forgot that reference because I hate the movie Megan.
He does hate
it. It's a piece of garbage.
But
that movie you could just not see.
But I like the inclusion of her in this film. She does an excellent job of being a person who could reel in someone into this world of madness.
Well, there's this family, a rich white family called the Armitage. There are four of them. There's Rose, who we just talked about. She fakes a relationship with Chris to draw him in so that she can bring Chris to meet the parents. And then there's Missy, the mom. There's Dean, the dad, and then there's this brother who's like this thug, and it's Jeremy Armitage. And actually, it was Jeremy Armitage who kidnapped this Andre King at the very beginning of the movie. So, yeah, this family and this movie has a lot of imagery. Like, it's set in the South, in modern times, but it's a lot of imagery to slavery. It's like when Rose brings Chris to meet the parents, they go to like a plantation kind of setting. There are servants there. Of course, the servants are black, and
behaving very oddly.
Almost too subservient, and so, the red flags going up all over the place. Yeah, and then Rod told Chris, to be careful about all this. Well, actually, Chris calls Rod and describes his feelings of at-easeness. And then his friend Rod, I don't know if I should divulge everything there, but this family, and it turns out that this particular weekend that Chris or Rose has brought Chris to the family, there's this like gathering. Mm-hmm. Of course, gathering of, and it reminded me of the movie, Going Back to the Martyrs, but they had a gathering then. But rich people all driving up in similar looking cars. Again, they're all white. And they all want to meet Chris. And they all want to touch him and
size
him up.
Find out if he's into sports, if he's into golf.
You want to move your hips. And yeah, and they're just sizing him up, and it's like, what in the world? It's almost like somebody was, they didn't do it, but it's almost like somebody was about to look at his teeth.
Right.
It didn't happen, but almost. So again, really harking back to those slavery days is I mean, it's modern times though, so why would Chris think that, he's being sized up to be auctioned off?
So, Gene, Jordan Peele is really well known for having lots of different themes throughout all of his movies at this point. Let's talk about some of those. We've talked a little bit about the obvious slavery one.
Slavery, right. But Anita and I watched this with my wife, and she's going to join us sometime soon, I think.
Well, good. That'll be fun.
But it's just like a big theme of slavery, of course, but it's a bigger theme of even loss of control. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a relatable theme, I think, to a lot of us. Maybe I'm just going to throw it out there to our economy that's out there right now. It's just it's kind of, prices are high. It's we're kind of not in control a little bit, and it's kind of disconcerting. And it's disconcerting at the beginning of the movie. We got Andre King walking. It just seems like just a great guy walking to his friend's house. And he's kidnapped. And right there, the guy has lost control of his life. And you just know it. And you just feel for him. It's, but again, like I said before, the movie, it hooks you in right there, and then as Chris and Rose, they end up going to Rose's family, there's just a feeling of foreboding. You're kind of sold in on the relationship of Chris and Rose. Rose does a great job of being the loyal girlfriend. And actually, there's a part in the movie where, of course, they're pulled over by a police officer, and Rose defends Chris because, of course, it's movies in Alabama. And the police officer is asking Chris, the black guy, can I see your light? Even though he clearly wasn't driving. And then Rose really defends him, and so you're even more attuned to that Rose is faithful. But yeah, there's just that whole loss of control. And then also the theme of, and it really hits home with the turn of Rose. I think that's a big element there, is that you really trust her, and then she just betrays him in the biggest way.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just that sense of betrayal. In a way, again, going back, but I think in a way we can all kind of relate to that, when we thought something was happening and then all of a sudden it wasn't.
Well, and this one is even more involved with that sense of betrayal because, of course, the Rod character had kind of intimated that maybe hanging out with a white woman is not the smartest thing to do, which is, the age-old problem or issue that our society has faced with, can mixed race couples be happy and this and that. And of course, it's even more devastating than that, Rod was right the whole time. You shouldn't have been hanging out with this white woman because look what she's going to do to you. She's going to do that. And then also you talked about the loss of control, but also the loss of identity.
Right.
Where,
they
like
were Andre at the beginning.
Right. Andre, they're doing that whole research. Rod is awesome. He's like this TSA agent who thinks he's like he's Columbo or something.
Yeah. Like it's FBI, NSA.
Right. But there's the whole thing where he does research and it's like, well, this is what that person was and now he's this, so his identity has been lost, and then that leads to him lashing out when he regains control for a second there.
Because we meet Andre later on at this gathering, and Chris, and it turns out that Chris and Rod kind of know Andre from before, like as an acquaintance, and so Rod does all this TSA research because he has access. And he finds out this guy Andre is he's from New York, is like an artist, I believe, and he had his own successful life, but has been listed as missing for like 6 months.
Right.
Nobody knows where he is, and all of a sudden he shows up at this gathering of rich white people at the Armitage plantation, acting totally and completely different.
Well, and I like the little bit of commentary there very briefly where we all know how the issue is with if the black person disappears nobody cares, but if it's the little blonde white girl, it's all over CNN and Fox News and everywhere.
The missing white women, got into that.
And so it was because the TSA guy Rod even goes to the police and says, hey, here's what I think is going on, we found this guy, he's here.
Again, like I said, it's like this movie's not horror comedy, but there's definitely very funny elements. And Chris, and this movie brings up the point about the relationship between Chris and people, or the relationship between people of color, let me say more broadly, and the police. And so I think
Rod is definitely going a little bit overboard with this because he automatically assumes they're being captured to be turned into sex slaves.
Yeah, he's talking to the detective. The detective's like, and the detective then brings in her buddies, and they're all listening to Rod talk about the sex slavery business.
Right, they're brainwashed into sex slavery.
And then they're all like being really like, oh yeah, okay, I'm listening. And then all of a sudden, they all look at each other, and it's the game's up. They just start laughing, and then they just laugh Rod right out of the office.
And so again, just that commentary on not really caring that much about the missing black person, not listening when the proof is right in front of you as well.
There's the theme there, is that you're right, is that somebody has been missing. Somebody brings up potential evidence, and it's completely dismissed. Completely.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, Gene, that there's multiple endings to this movie. Are you aware of that? So the way the movie ends now is different than the original intended ending. So
Jordan Peele had different.
Well, because I believe Jordan Peele said we're Xing that ending, and the ending, there's actually two that they filmed but chose not to use. One is Rod enters the house, the big plantation house at the end. He comes to save Chris, but Chris is already 100% taken over. And so he's like, Chris, and he sees Chris. And then Chris is like, I don't know who you're looking for.
Chris is acting like the blind guy who won him in that game of bingo. Yeah.
And then the other one, the one that was actually shown to a test.
But Rod, because of his TSA powers, he finds him. Yeah.
But the other ending was at the end there where Chris is over Rose and is kind of trying to strangle her, and then the police pull up.
And that's the ending we have.
It was really the police who then charge him and put him in jail for all these murders.
Well, that's what you thought when the movie was ending, because Chris is choking Rose on the pavement, killing her really, and then the police show up, lights, and then you're thinking that, oh my Lord, after all of this, Chris is going to be arrested. He's going to go to prison. His fingerprints all over the place. He started the fire. He's going to go to prison the rest of his life for killing these people. And he's the innocent guy.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it doesn't happen because the police is actually, it's Rod in a TSA car, and he could use his TSA powers to find him. And
but it's interesting. I looked at an interview with Jordan Peele where
we really like this ending,
where he was talking about how he had to remove that ending, one, because it just was too much, right? It was just too much. But he said
with the actual police.
Right. But he said he still could give the audience that impression, which you just intimated, where here comes the cops. And until you realize it's Rod, you're thinking, oh, crap,
yeah, because if it had been the real police, that is exactly what would have happened.
Or they would have just straight up shot him.
Or they would have just shot him. Yeah.
There's also about 8 sequences of Rod and Chris in the car, because Rod gives that little I'm mother effing TSA or whatever.
Right. And they just like, I told you so.
Yeah. But there's a whole bunch of other sequences where they were trying other things, like I told you not to go out with a white woman.
Right. Rod says that.
And there's like, I'm pretty sure she was a Trump voter and all sorts of weird other scenes like this.
Yeah, you got to take that out. Yeah.
Well, and you do, because they do mention Barack Obama at one point in this movie, but to have left the Trump line in there, it just dates it a little too much.
It does, and you don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of funny because Rose presents to Chris, his parents are cool because Dean, the dad, voted for Barack Obama. Right. And then actually Dean is showing Chris around the house. Again, we see those pictures like we mentioned. And he mentions, oh, yeah, I voted for Barack Obama twice, just as Rose had said he would. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of cheeky.
Well, and he saes, he would have voted for him a third
time. Right, yeah.
And there was a lot of sequences like
and
that.
You just roll your eyes. But it kind of reinforces the whole idea that Chris and Rose are a legit couple, and these are legit people. But
yeah,
it's all a facade. It's all a sham. And it's even another theme right there is that, we want to really believe our senses. We should really believe what our eyes tell us, what we're hearing with our ears. But sometimes, we can be led astray.
Well, but I think Chris comments on that because there is the interplay there where Rose, I believe it is asking him how's he getting along with all these weird interactions. And he basically says, it's nothing I'm not used to. So anytime he's kind of out in a group with predominantly white people or whatever, this is the kind of stuff he hears from them. Oh, you're a black guy? Let's talk about Tiger Woods, who I think is great.
Right.
Oh, you're a black guy? Yes, I voted for Barack Obama.
Other nonsense like that. Yeah, it's just like you get a different kind of perception. And this movie touches on it. That's a good line. Good job.
Yeah.
Good job picking that up.
It's just, again, good quality horror will have, like Gene always says, stuff to really talk about. And this one certainly does that.
Oh, yeah. My wife and I were talking about this for a while after it was over. So it's good stuff. Yeah.
Had your wife seen it before?
She had never seen it before. So, she was living in New Orleans. She was studying theater there at Tulane. So she missed it.
Well, one of the beauties of Gene and being part of this podcast is he's slowly reeling his wife into a world of horror now too. So because
she's watching a few of them now. Yeah, she likes them. Yeah.
I'm just really sad you didn't drag her to Terrifier 3.
But I do. I'm gonna have her watch good horror. I'm not gonna ever have her watch what's that piece of garbage? Silent Night, Deadly Night. No. Oh my gosh,
that is what is the film.
Point? Where Roger and I are not agreeing. Well, we will never agree.
You can certainly...
Terrifier. We mentioned Megan. Oh, Megan had such potential. Ugh.
Megan 2.0 is filming right now.
But like in Megan, especially when they had that Karen kind of neighbor and they killed the Karen neighbor, they could have gone all Terrifier on it, but no.
Well,
you got all PG. The problem with that movie is rated PG-13. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. Just give it an R rating and just go.
In the unrated
But I think maybe
version,
they wanted to sell Megan dolls or something. I don't know.
I do have a Megan doll up on my shelf. Yeah, they're little. I have her right next to the Annabelle doll.
I can see having Annabelle, but even the whole Annabelle as we talked about, we reviewed that movie. That movie is just kind of, it's such potential, but it just kind of, and again, it's like some movies, the great idea starts great, but they capture lightning in a bottle and it just works. And this was one of those movies. But like Megan, Annabelle, it's like they almost got it, but somewhere along the way, the energy in the bottle got out, and
well, what I was hoping
it became a shell.
What I was hoping with Annabelle Jean is they would have used the real Annabelle doll, which was a Raggedy Ann.
It's a Raggedy Ann doll. It's not the scary.
Not creepy thing on any level, but let's make it creepy with a horror film. Anyway, we are way
off topic.
Anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, and this was, again, really the start of Jordan Peele kind of really embracing the horror genre, because, of course, he was kind of known as a funny man before.
Yeah,
and then he did the Twilight Zone reboot and was experimenting a lot with his style with those. And then here was his first movie, and it did really, really, really well, which opened the door for other movies from him.
Yep.
And I think people now in the horror film genre are, when is the next Jordan Peele horror film? Because he has a good style. He's not on the level of Damien Leone with Terrifier 3, which is awesome. He's different.
Did you sigh? That's a big sigh there.
He's different.
He's a different kind of horror. And there are different types of horror, of course.
Well, and of course...
But I appreciate this kind of horror better. That's the reason I explained.
This movie was nominated for Best Picture of the year it came out. Jordan Peele, of course, won the Oscar for Best Screenplay. So it was recognized by the Academy, which I think was great because, of course, we all know horror films generally aren't. And so this one...
Like comedies, they generally get looked over.
Mm-hmm. And so this one was recognized far and wide as a quality piece of filmmaking.
Yep, couldn't say more.
Okay.
But would Terrifier ever appear at the Academy Awards? Never, for good reasons. Or Silent Night, Deadly Night?
Well,
never.
And what I would say is, of course, we have to remember the Academy is a bunch of babies, right? And you can have the best film of the year looking at you in the face and
they'll choose something
it,
else, right?
Right? We go back to...
We're going to get into this again.
We are. Do the Right Thing wasn't even nominated.
And
Driving Miss Daisy wins. Driving Miss Daisy wins, and Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing is not even nominated.
I don't know what to say about that.
I know. And so, of course, Terrifier 3 is not going to be nominated for Best Picture this year because the Academy sucks.
Yeah, and let's not even get into like Brokeback Mountain and Crash, and let's not even get started in that. Yeah, that's a travesty of justice. But yeah, back to this movie. It's great. So I think we're in agreement on that.
Yeah.
So Roger, what do we?
A lot of good acting too in this as well. I think all the characters are well played. I think Jordan Peele really took great care in who he brought on. I think the hiring of Allison Williams to be the Rose character was great.
Yeah, she sells it really well. That they're a legit couple. Yeah, they're together, but all of a sudden they're not.
Mm-hmm. And the scene where she's drinking milk through a straw and eating Fruit Loops one by one is just amazing. And she's got the pictures of all her conquests on the back wall and stuff.
They're trophies for her. Clearly, she
is just one crazy person.
And if it had worked with Chris, there would be others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, Jeannie, we're trying to say, what are we doing next week?
Yeah. So what are we doing next week? I'm kind of thinking.
We could get into the holiday spirit of Santa's Sleigh, Slay, Christmas Evil, Krampus. There's all sorts of Christmas ones.
But they're all bad.
No, they are not.
Yeah,
have you seen?
We spent a lot of time talking about Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Oh, it's great. But have you seen Krampus?
I've never seen Krampus.
Okay, you might take a look at that one and see if you want to talk about it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Krampus.
But anyway, we will do something next week. We'll figure it out. We'll do something.
All right. We haven't decided yet, but we'll do something.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you haven't seen Get Out, well, one, we've kind of ruined it all for you. But if you haven't seen it, what's wrong with you? You should have seen it already.
You should have seen it already.
We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.